What if I told you that the moment you invest your first $10,000, something changes in you that has nothing to do with money at all? It is not the number. $10,000 will not make you rich. It will not buy you a house, and it will not let you quit your job tomorrow. But it does something far more powerful than any of that. It rewires the way your brain sees risk, time, and your own future. And once that switch flips, there is no going back to who you were before. This is Ron, and welcome back to the channel where we break down money, investing, and automation in a way that actually makes sense. Before we dive in, if you have not already, hit that like button right now and make sure you are subscribed, because we are about to unpack exactly what happens to your mindset, your habits, and your bank account once you cross that first $10,000 line. Let's get into it. Let's start with the hardest truth in personal finance. The first $10,000 is the most difficult money you will ever save and invest. Not because the math is hard, but because you are building the machine from scratch, with no compounding, no momentum, and no help from the market. Every single dollar in that first $10,000 comes directly from your own effort. There is no shortcut here. It is discipline, plain and simple. But here is where it gets interesting. Once that $10,000 is actually invested, not sitting in a checking account, not stuffed under a mattress, but working in the market, something shifts. You stop being a saver, and you become an investor. And those are two completely different identities. A saver thinks in terms of what they can avoid spending. An investor thinks in terms of what their money can become. That is a massive psychological upgrade, and it happens almost overnight the moment you make that first real investment. Let's talk numbers, because numbers make this real. Say you invest that $10,000 in a diversified portfolio, and it grows at an average annual return of 8%. After 10 years, without adding another cent, that money grows to roughly $21,500. After 20 years, it becomes almost $47,000. After 30 years, you are looking at close to $101,000. From $10,000, untouched, just growing. Now here is the part almost nobody tells you. The second $10,000 you invest is dramatically easier to accumulate than the first. Why? Because once you have built the habit, the automation, and the mindset, your income tends to grow, your spending discipline tightens, and your first batch of invested money is quietly compounding in the background, helping carry the load. The first $10,000 is a mountain. The second $10,000 is a hill. The third is barely a hike. This is the snowball effect in action, and it is the single most underrated force in building wealth. Compounding does not look impressive in the first few years. It looks almost boring. But give it enough time, and it becomes the most powerful financial engine you will ever have access to. Albert Einstein reportedly called compound interest one of the most powerful forces in the universe, and whether or not he actually said that exact phrase, the math absolutely backs it up. Let's talk about what changes behaviorally once you hit that first $10,000 invested. The first shift is in how you view spending. When you know that $1,000 spent today is $1,000 that will not compound for the next 30 years, spending starts to feel different. Not restrictive, just more intentional. You start asking yourself a simple question before a purchase. Is this worth more to me now or worth more to me later, multiplied by time? The second shift is emotional resilience. Once your money is actually in the market, you experience your first real taste of volatility. You will watch that $10,000 drop to $9,200 during a rough month, and your stomach will drop with it. This is normal. This happens to every single investor who has ever lived, including the most successful ones in history. The difference between someone who builds wealth and someone who does not is not that one group avoids these drops. It is that one group holds steady and the other panics and sells at the worst possible time. This is why automation matters so much and why this channel exists. When you automate your investing, you remove emotion from the equation. You set up a recurring contribution, whether that is weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, and the money moves before you even have a chance to second guess it. This is called dollar cost averaging, and it is one of the simplest, most effective strategies available to regular investors. You buy more shares when prices are low, and fewer shares when prices are high, and over time, This smooths out the ride and keeps your emotions out of the driver's seat. Let's talk about common mistakes people make right around this $10,000 mark, because this is a dangerous inflection point. The first mistake is overconfidence. People hit $10,000, see a few good months, and suddenly think they have figured out the market. They start picking individual stocks based on hype, chasing whatever is trending, and abandoning the boring, diversified approach that got them there in the first place. Do not let a lucky streak convince you that you are the exception to decades of financial data. The second mistake is under-diversification. $10,000 sitting in one or two individual stocks is not investing, it is gambling with better branding. A properly diversified portfolio, spread across hundreds or thousands of companies through index funds or broad market ETFs, protects you from the disaster of any single company collapsing and taking your money down with it. The third mistake is ignoring fees. This one is sneaky because it is invisible in the short term, but devastating over decades. A fund charging 1% in annual fees versus one charging 0.03% might not sound like a big difference, but over 30 years, that seemingly small gap can cost you tens of thousands of dollars in lost growth. Always know what you are paying, and always compare it against lower-cost alternatives. The fourth mistake is stopping. This is the big one. People hit $10,000, feel a sense of accomplishment, and then quietly stop contributing. They let that $10,000 sit there and consider the job done. But remember what we said earlier. The real magic is not the $10,000 itself. It is what happens when you keep feeding the machine month after month, year after year, while compounding works in the background. Let's zoom out and talk about why this specific number, $10,000, tends to be such a powerful psychological milestone. Part of it is simply that it is the first time the number feels significant. $1,000 feels like an emergency fund. $10,000 starts to feel like real money, like the beginning of an actual portfolio, something that could genuinely become a down payment, a retirement fund, or financial independence one day. This is also usually the point where people start paying closer attention to their investments. They check their account more often. They start reading about asset allocation, tax-advantaged accounts, and long-term strategy. In many ways, $10,000 invested is not just a financial milestone, it is an educational one. It is the point where personal finance stops being abstract and starts being personal. Let's talk about time, because time is the real hero in this story, more than any specific dollar amount. If you invest $10,000 at age 25 and never add another dollar, at an 8% average return, by age 65 you would have roughly $217,000. If you wait until age 35 to invest that same $10,000, by age 65 you would have around $101,000. Same amount of money, same rate of return, but a full decade of delay costs you well over $100,000 in future growth. This is why the phrase, time in the market beats timing the market, gets repeated so often. It is not a cliche, it is math. Now let's connect this back to automation, because that is really what separates people who talk about investing from people who actually build wealth. The goal is not to rely on willpower every single month to decide whether or not you feel like investing. The goal is to build a system where investing happens automatically, whether you are motivated that day or not, whether the market is up or down, whether you are having a good month financially or a tight one. Set up automatic transfers from your checking account into your investment account. Time them right after your paycheck hits, so the money moves before it has a chance to get spent on something else. Increase that automatic contribution slightly every time you get a raise, before your lifestyle has a chance to expand and absorb it. This single habit, automating your investing and gradually increasing it over time, is responsible for more millionaires than any hot stock tip or trading strategy ever will be. Let's also talk about the emotional payoff, because this matters just as much as the financial one. There is a specific kind of calm that comes from knowing your money is working for you, even while you sleep. It is different from the temporary excitement of a good purchase. It is a quieter, steadier kind of confidence. People who reach that first $10,000 invested milestone often describe a shift from financial anxiety to financial curiosity. Instead of dreading their bank balance, they start getting curious about their net worth, their portfolio allocation, and their progress toward bigger goals. So what should you actually do with this information? First, if you have not started yet, start small, but start automated. Even $100 a month into a low-cost index fund is enough to begin building the habit and the identity of an investor. Second, if you are already past that $10,000 mark, resist the urge to slow down. The habits that got you here are exactly the habits that will take you to 50,000, 100,000, and beyond. Third, protect yourself from the two biggest threats at this stage, which are overconfidence and impatience. Stay diversified, stay consistent, and let time do the heavy lifting. So let's bring this all together. Your first $10,000 invested is not really about the $10,000. It is about proving to yourself that you can build something from nothing, one automated contribution at a time. It is about the psychological shift from saver to investor, from spender to builder. It is about learning to sit through volatility instead of panicking through it. And it is about setting up a system that keeps working for you, month after month, year after year, long after the motivation of day one has faded. The first $10,000 is the hardest money you will ever invest. But it is also the most important, because everything after it gets easier, faster, and more powerful, thanks to the simple, quiet force of compounding. If this video gave you even one new way of thinking about your money, do me a favor and hit that like button. And if you have not subscribed yet, now is the perfect time, because we are just getting started on this channel. Drop a comment and let me know. Have you hit your first $10,000 invested yet, or are you working toward it right now? I read every single comment, and I would love to hear where you are on this journey. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one, and until then, keep building.